light within our hearts, light within our thoughts, light within our words. May one and all and everything, blessed and loved, ever be. Welcome. I am Sister Who. With me today on the show I have my friend David Slater, who is an intuitive and spiritual counselor. And the topic we wanted to discuss today was demonstrating or practicing love within a context of fear. Context of fear sounds like this vague sort of academic description, though. What we're actually talking about is circumstances such as a world that is very paranoid and suspicious, a world or maybe a social context or social gathering in which somebody's really afraid of something happening, or someone is suspicious that you'll let them down even though you have no intention of doing so, and they are afraid of a negative outcome. And I sometimes jokingly say, why do I always have to be the mature one?
I've never said that.
But in that moment, to be the gracious, loving, mature person who finds a way to express love and indirectly persuade their fear to thereby leave. The wonderful old saying, perfect love casts out fear. I aspire to make my love better and better, but I don't know if I'll be perfect at it. But the idea of, even when everything around you says to be suspicious and paranoid and afraid and insecure and, oh my God, what am I going to do about whatever, to find a way to be the presence of love instead.
What I find is how basic it is, that the whole concept. Basically, since human beings have civilized, they've based everything in fear. Our governments, our religions, even our families, the dynamics are set up in a fear understanding. And so
essentially every rule was created to prevent a negative outcome.
Right. Basically, the concept is to fight nature. We're trying to build this Prozac community. There's no highs, there's no lows. We're just going to stay right in the middle, and we control it through fear. And to be loving in a fearful situation is a challenge at all times. But
you're essentially swimming upstream.
Yes. And giving up the concept that what people will think, or what the concern is, or what the prevailing mood is, and just say, I will stand in love.
And in a sense, you're having the courage to embrace your own vulnerability. And to embrace the possibility that someone could take advantage of you. And to accept that the rewards of love are worth taking the risk of loss.
It's a fascinating concept. First of all, you speak of the vulnerability. So few people understand the strength that's found in vulnerability. When you become truly vulnerable, willingly vulnerable, there's a strength found there. The other interesting thing is, you speak again of the rewards. The best thing I can compare that to is labor pains. Women, now I don't know anything about it. I was present for all three of my children's birth, but I did not feel it. But I'm guessing, by just what I've seen, it's not an easy process and not exactly comfortable. Yet women will have more than one child. And you ask them, predominantly the answer is because it's worth it. So they will go through the pain fully knowing what it's going to be, because it's worth it. To love, to profoundly love, to deeply and honestly love, is worth the pain. And it gets remarkable.
It seems to me that is so contrary to the majority of current pop psychology that wants happiness all the time and follow your bliss. And if women were to follow their bliss, the human race would go extinct. There's nothing particularly blissful about the process of childbirth.
Unless you incorporate all 35 years of the experience of the child. Meaning...
And not for every person, because
yes.
The thing to remember with giving birth to a child is that every single time it's a gamble. There is no guarantee that this child will turn out to be a saint. You hope that the child will not turn out to be a serial killer.
I wonder
but
what...
every life is a gamble.
And sure.
You have absolutely no guarantee of which way things will go. You show up, you do your best. You have all these very legitimate fears based on the history of human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you choose to enter that adversarial context with love.
Mm-hmm.
Because love is what always persuades us to give it a chance.
What stories could Francis of Assisi's mother tell us? He was a saint. I wonder what he was as a child.
From what I understand, he was quite a hellraiser.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he did it right. That's the thing, is to love a person. This is the thing with millennia now of the human experience being based in fear.
Mm-hmm.
We ought to be hardwired for it, but for some reason we aren't. That is a puzzling one to me and tells me how incredibly powerful a human being is. But when we start grasping the concepts of love, that society doesn't teach us. Love is not earned, and love is not withdrawn. If it is earned, it stopped being love. If it is withdrawn, it never was.
Mm-hmm.
And if you say, I love you because, you're no longer speaking of love once you say because. And...
well, and equally so if you say, I love you if.
Right, exactly. And that's what our society speaks in. Though we're speaking things that many people say more than once in a day.
Conditions and clauses and requirements and expectations.
Well,
try to talk to any self-respecting Buddhist about expectations and see how many laughs you get. Buddhism more than the others seems to really focus on how expectations are an absolute trap. And yet our world is so saturated with them, and it's so difficult to figure out how to live without them, that we actually consider it, at least for the Buddhists, a form of spiritual evolution to get beyond expectations.
Mm-hmm.
As Sister Who, though, I would say there's this fine line between expectations and hopefulness, between having faith in the positive possibilities without slipping into it being expectation, where you suddenly become devastated, disappointed, disempowered if you don't get that for which you were hoping.
What we've built now is communication based on supposition. Human beings in our society get no exercise except for jumping to conclusions. and that's, to make this a little personal, I have to tell you if I'm bothered. You don't pick up on any nuance. Now, what is delightful about that is your gift to me.
Okay.
If I treat everyone the way I treat you and say, until I say I'm bothered, presume I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, and we've spoken of...
Well, but I have run into people who would say that and not do it.
Right.
I had an allegedly spiritually evolved person contact me a couple days ago after a previous email, and I can show you the email if you want. The first email is like 3 pages long, painting me in this horrendously negative sort of image to where I didn't even recognize myself. And the last third of the letter is typed all in capital letters. Okay, and I just said, well, if I inadvertently offended you, I'm so sorry, and clearly we disagree on some things here and so forth. The next email I get from him is basically says, well, I wasn't upset. Okay, your caps lock got stuck. I don't know. I recall a man I knew a number of years ago who clearly had an expectation, though I wasn't quite sure what it was, and we're outside doing some yard work, and so suddenly he's coming up and he grabs a shovel and throws it on the ground and looks at me and says, but I'm not angry.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, you're not angry.
This is our society now.
You know, I don't know that there's a lot of difference, though, between anger and fear. I mean, in some sense, they're pointed in different directions. One's very aggressive, one's theoretically more passive, but in both cases, you're dealing with an extreme of feeling that is interfering with communication and most profoundly interfering with the practice of love. You cannot love someone if you are busy being afraid of them, and you cannot love someone if you're busy being angry with them.
Or fearing that they're going away.
Or fearing that they're going away.
Yeah, and that's one of the
biggest
biggest
that they will
things.
do something you don't want them to do.
Uh-huh.
Or that they will somehow...
Become someone you can't love.
Someone who can't what?
Fear of them becoming someone you can't love.
Yeah. I was going to say fear of them becoming a disappointment, not living up to your expectations.
Mm-hmm. The list goes on.
Yeah, and I've heard people say, even when I'm angry with you, I still love you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe underneath somewhere, but don't expect me to see a demonstration of love while anger is the mask you're wearing.
Uh-huh.
And don't expect me to see a genuine demonstration of love while fear is the mask you're wearing. To approach somebody with fear, and unavoidably, I suppose, expectations, you're essentially conveying to them that you don't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't trust their judgment, you don't trust their decisions, you don't trust their self-agency. And consequently, because you're afraid of what they might do, you're going to try to take control from them and do it for them, essentially making them a slave to your expectations. That's not love.
Absolutely not. And this is the thing I try to speak to so many people about. Everyone wants that one in their life, that amazing one. Yet, when I speak to the folks who come to me about this, I say, do you know a loving, powerful, loving relationship that's lasted more than 5 years or 10? Mm-hmm. There are relationships that have lasted that long, but died in the third year, but they cohabitate, so to speak. Mm. So we're trying to find what we don't have a working model of. And what I'm trying to tell folks is you're not failing at relationships, you're using a failed model. In relationships, and it doesn't matter whether it's a romantic one or a friendship, we have unspoken expectations. Unspoken expectations? You're basically wishing someone else to fail, guaranteeing someone's going to fail.
And the logical solution would be to talk about them.
Yes.
So they're not unspoken anymore.
What is a delightful thing to ask folks is ask them to give you a 4-letter word that ends in K that means intercourse. And then tell them, talk. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because their mind goes somewhere else. And it shifts the way of thinking. And that's the issue. There's the old saying, when you're a hammer, the world looks like a nail.
Okay.
And when you get so wrapped up in the way our society works, it can only mean one thing. If, for instance...
See, and forgive me for interrupting, but going back to your metaphor, the hammer and the nail, the context of fear is the assumption that the world is nothing but nails and they're all pointed at you.
or right there on your foot. Yeah.
The hammer wants to connect with the head of the nail, not the point.
Uh-huh.
In order to be constructive, the fear has to be turned around.
Uh-huh.
And allow the hammer to drive it in a constructive direction.
But the thing is that we are not hammers. We have multiple uses, multiple functions as human beings. And here's the thing, when you speak of any emotion, understanding that none of them are bad. I had a very...
They just are what they are.
Yes. Someone who is incredibly remarkable and very important in my life, a few months ago, she was mad at me.
Okay.
And I ruined it for her because I got so excited and happy. I'm like, wow, we get to see what it's like for you to be angry with me. And I was honestly and authentically excited because we get to go to this new place. And she's like,
This is not the reaction I was anticipating.
And it totally killed her anger. Well, it didn't. She was still able to get angry, but...
Hopefully you still addressed what inspired the anger.
Oh, couldn't escape it, which was wonderful. That's the delightful thing. She was 100% validated by circumstance to be angry with me. I did something that would cause anger.
Okay.
Great. Wonderful. You are angry with me. You need to be angry. You have every reason to be angry. Now let's see what that means between the two of us. Now, can you imagine?
And whether you're able to adapt to the new information when she explains why she was angry.
Yes. And fortunately...
Was it something you even realized you had done?
Yes. Uh-huh. Oh, we had a pretty good idea that once we interacted face to face, that's exactly what was going to happen. The thing is it's not something I would normally do. So it wasn't like, oh, I promise I'll never do it again. I won't, can't.
But it wasn't something you deliberately did in order to make her angry.
Oh, absolutely not. Why?
You had your own reason for doing it, but you didn't adequately integrate her reasons.
All it was a series of circumstances, unescapable circumstances.
Okay.
And when
you
it
made a judgment call.
Yes. And what happened was she didn't know where I was, and I couldn't tell her. I was out of range. So, again, it was circumstances. But
the only thing silence communicates is confusion.
Exactly. And she had nothing but guessing to go off of. She was angry with me. Of course she's angry with me. Isn't that wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we can interact with people and say, you know what? You're angry with me, and that's 100% correct. Let's go through all of this. Let's be excited about the fact that you're angry because, first of all, you're acknowledging it. You're becoming more human by saying, dang it, I'm angry, and I'm going to be angry. Great. There is nothing wrong with anger.
Well, it also testifies to your connection. You don't get angry with people you don't care about.
Right. Hey, do you remember when you used to get angry with politics? And now... oh, wow, they're doing that same thing all over again. You don't care anymore. And I'm not speaking for any one person. People get angry with politics, and with what they do, yeah, there's plenty of reason to be angry about. But after those...
but it testifies to them having convictions, to having principles, to having something worth defending. You know, when you're angry with a person... it's because you want a mutually empowering relationship with that person. And something about the most recent development or current circumstances is getting in the way of that. And consequently, because you want that relationship of love, you have to fight with the circumstances that have gotten in the way.
And to understand the difference between circumstances and intent. When you intend to do something, drumming your fingers is a habit. It's a habit that can be broken. If you're making someone angry by drumming your fingers, okay, who's so emotionally attached to drumming their fingers? That's one thing.
But I would say go to the next layer.
Yes?
If someone's drumming his fingers, what is he nervous about?
Yes.
Why are you feeling anxiety? Is there a situation you need me to address for you? Where is this coming from?
And what does it mean? Because again, once you stop the drumming of the fingers, it's the next thing, and then the next thing, because you're not addressing the deeper, the core issue. And again, what we're speaking of is what it's like to be loving. The thing is I was introduced to a remarkable concept. It's in a book called Principia Mathematica, the philosophy of life through mathematics, which that entire 2-volume set is so far over my head, jumping, won't get it except for one axiom.
Okay.
That one axiom is the axiom of the unrestricted variable. That a variable in an equation.
Unrestricted variable.
Yes.
Okay.
That variable can be so many things that it's easier to define it by what it is not than what it is. Now,
Okay.
here's the beauty of our society. We are being taught daily what love is not. Because I sure couldn't tell you what love is. It is infinite and it is eternal. And
it's expensive.
Exactly.
I mean, that's one of the fascinating things to me as I tried to figure out what is the essence of love and what is the essence of fear. Is that fear always contracts and restricts and love always expands and empowers.
Absolutely.
So if things are getting smaller or feeling more restrained, use that as a warning flag that it's possible there really isn't the love in this that you might think there is.
What is depression? Depression is a belief you have no options.
Mm-hmm.
When you have
I've
no
also heard it
choice.
described as anger that is turned inward, the anger that is denied any expression, any way of expanding, any way of speaking its voice.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you bottle it up, the more it ferments and becomes depression.
Mm-hmm.
And which makes me wonder, I've never really put it to the test, I guess, if someone is depressed, to figure out what anger might be underneath it all and find a way to act that out.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you feel depressed while you're doing it, just act it out and see if you can reawaken the anger that became the depression and, in a sense, undercut the whole process, and suddenly it's like the depression goes down the drain like an emptying bathtub.
So many times, anger being, again, this is hard to speak out. A belief I've come across is that fear is not only an emotion, but it is a power. Love is not only an emotion, but a power.
Okay.
And so you can call them heaven and hell, God and devil, right and
consider
wrong.
fear a negative power.
No, an opposite to love.
Okay.
Okay, for instance, let's dispel the premise of fear being negative. Fear, a result of that can be obligation and guilt. And I'm not a big fan of obligation and guilt. But if I look through this neighborhood, I see all kinds of houses built by people who are supporting their families, sometimes out of obligation and guilt.
Mm-hmm.
So most of what I see is built out of obligation and guilt. So it served us really well. But its greatest service will be when we do it, when we live life with its absence. To go through
When
a
we
life
live life with its absence.
where, can you imagine living a life with no obligation or guilt?
I guess my question would, how would anything ever get done? But
What if we did it out of self-love? What if we did it out of the love for our family? When was the last time you had a bill and got excited you got to pay it? That's my point.
This is a purely rhetorical question, right?
In a sense, but the concept is, we go into a
You know when I
drudgery.
did get excited about having to pay it?
Yes,
When it was the last one.
exactly.
When this was paying off whatever it was. That was exciting.
And it's an amazing feeling, isn't it?
Because I get to step into freedom at that point.
What if you did that with every bill? What if you said, I have it, I can pay it, isn't this exciting? And here's
And once I pay it, I don't have to think about it again.
yes, but what if you did it for the first bill? And you say, okay, I've got 4 weeks and not thinking about this again. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't it be cool if when it comes again, I have the money for it? Well, looky here, I got the money yet again, and you get to pay it. You dramatically change your life. And again, fear is not bad and love is not good. They exist and they're at diametric opposites. The concept is, since we've civilized, we've based everything in fear. Now let's try basing everything, all of our decisions, in the power of love.
Mhm.
And that'll change our conversation, that'll change our vernacular. How many times have you
Well,
heard?
going back to our earlier metaphor, love is not just about feeling good and being happy.
Right.
Love is also about being part of something that is generative, that creates life, that expands possibility. The work of sowing the field
Mm-hmm.
before the harvest, whatever metaphor you want to use that for. The love of giving something a new beginning instead of refusing to give a new beginning because you're so bound by the fear that it might not work.
And anger being a delightful love thing. Someone wrongs you deeply, disgustingly, and you say, no, that is unacceptable. Self-love. It's a great thing. Wonderful concept. And it is righteous anger, if you will.
And righteous anger is a very important subject, but one we'll have to address another time.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for everything you've shared, but we've barely scratched the surface and we're out of time again.
Exactly. Do it again.
Thank you so much.